Hey y'all, Patrick here with Thoman's Guitars and Basses, and today we're talking about something that's very controversial in the bass world, and that is strings. Now, when it comes to strings, there really is no one-size-fits-all for playing bass, and that's perfectly fine. It just can be a little overwhelming at first when you don't really know what you're doing. So today, I thought it would be really fun to compare two of the most popular types of bass strings out there, and those are flatwounds and roundwounds. Now, depending on what genre of music you normally play and what sound you're really looking to get out of your strings, roundwounds and flatwounds have a humongous range of different tones available and different genres that can work really well with them too. Now, some of you may be wondering what the actual big differences are between roundwounds and flatwounds. Basically, roundwounds are much more brighter, have much more sustain, or are generally just more accessible and cheaper too. And for flatwounds, you have a much more deep and full sound, but with a whole lot less top into it as well. And these strings also last much longer, but they are also more expensive generally too. And for today's comparison, I'm going to try both a set of roundwound strings and flatwound strings on the same bass, going through the same interface through the same amp plugin that has the exact same tone across the board too. So this way we can really hear the differences between them. Okay, so with that clip, you can definitely tell that the roundwounds have a much brighter tone overall, which is really nice, but they don't last nearly as long as flatwounds. Since flatwounds do have that dull sound, it's one of those things that doesn't really go away over time. So flatwounds could ideally last forever. Just make sure that if you do have flatwounds, clean them, clean your fretboard still. Don't let them get dirty or gross at all, please. And one thing your ears definitely probably noticed about the roundwounds is any fret noise or hand movements across your fretboard are really going to get picked up and be much more prominent because of that brighter tone. So traditionally, bassists that use roundwound strings play more pop, rock, metal, and definitely slap too, just because it has an overall brighter tone that makes it much more prevalent and sound much better in the mix. But that doesn't mean that you don't have artists that don't use flatwounds for those genres too. And hey, one of the most popular rock bassists of all time, Steve Harris of Iron Maiden, has always used flats. And even though he uses flats, he gets a very bright and very distinct tone too. Of course, that does have to do with the equipment he uses as well as his particular technique, but just because he uses flats doesn't mean he can't play rock. Another legend too is Pino Palladino. He's been known to mostly use flats throughout his entire career, but that hasn't stopped him from rocking out with flats with 9-inch nails too. So basses that use round wound strings are more likely to play pop music, rock music, metal music, and funk too, where you can really get a great slap sound to it with that brighter tone. Whereas with flat wound strings, a bassist would traditionally probably play soul, R&B, jazz, or reggae. Now, one thing I really want you guys to get out of this video is to know that there is no right or wrong string. It really just depends on what sounds good to your ears and what sounds good for the song that you're playing too. Just because this isn't a traditional thing using these strings doesn't mean you can't do it. You know, because there's not rules when it comes to playing music. It's just whatever sounds best for the context of what's there and whatever sounds best to you as the player too. So if you're a bassist that's never played flat wound strings before, I highly suggest just grabbing a set and trying it out, because you never know what different and cool sounds you can get from it, and even better, what inspiration can spark from using those different kinds of strings too. But y'all, thank you so much for watching and joining me in this really fun comparison between the two strings. But in the comments below, let us know what type of strings do you guys normally play? What gauge do y'all normally play? And heck, what genre of music too with that as well. But again, thank y'all so much for watching, and we'll go ahead and see you next time.